Everybody, welcome back to Spa for the third and final race of the weekend for the Radical Challenge Championship. This another 40-minute mini enduro race to look forward to with a mandatory pit stop. She joined me, Ben Evans, on what has remained a very, very pleasant June afternoon here in Belgium, and we should have perfect conditions to enjoy what is the culmination to what's been a very enjoyable weekend of racing for the Radical Challenge Championship, with Dominic Jackson claiming victories in both the races so far. And this is how the lineup based on how they finished earlier on. So Jim Booth, the Masters class winner, shares the front row with Dominic Jackson. Then Marcello Maritotto and Steve Burgess on row 2. Jerome de Sadler, Jason Rishover, row 3 from Mark Crader and Brian Cordwell. Elliot Goodman and Mark Hignett, then Adrian Watt and John McLeod. Christian Jeffrey hit trouble in the earlier race, so he starts in 13th alongside Tom Gladys, with then Dan Crossley and Peter Brooks on row 8, John Corbell and Rod Goodman on row 9, Alex Mortimer, Jeremy Ferguson, Spencer Bourne and Martin Verity, all having various adventures in the race earlier on, which was brought to an early conclusion rather by the red flag coming out following a spin for Spencer Bourne at Fania, which left him stranded in the middle of the road. And in the circumstances, absolutely the right decision was made to bring a halt to proceedings. So that is what happened, and the car's now on the formation lap. Of course, Dominic Jackson's success thus far this weekend means that he has got a fairly substantial success second situation to overcome in the race. That opens the door to some of his rivals to prevent Jackson getting the clean sweep, and there are other factors to watch for, such as the team element. So Tom Gladys starting the car that he shares with Peter Tyler, and then we'll also be having Stuart Mosley take over from John Caldwell late on in the race as well. Now though, the field just putting a little bit of heat into their Hankook tyres as they run along the Kemmel Straight. Just seeing how the track has changed since their race a little bit earlier on today. Since then, they've had touring cars, big GT cars and single-seaters all taking to the track, and no precipitation during that period either. So the circuit is nicely rubbered in and really perfect conditions for racing. So the cars of the Radical Challenge Championship, all the Radical SR3 RSXs, which have got a superb level of performance relative to the cost of acquiring one, phenomenally short braking distances and really very, very potent in a straight line. The 3 Masters class cars that are due to be making an appearance, those are Jim Booth, Alex Mortimer and Jeremy Ferguson. Well, they are variants of the Radical SR8 RSX, which is a bit more powerful. And Jim Booth and Jeremy Ferguson, the variant that you currently can race. Alex Mortimer in a developmental car for this weekend, so you won't be seeing him appearing on the podium or anything. So that is how the race should unfold. Looking down the field, I think that we're probably going to be seeing Alex Mortimer starting from the pit lane, because he is not there at the rear of the field. I also think that Martin Verity is possibly missing as well. So we shall see how many of them actually make an appearance for this final race of the weekend. Verity, who was involved in a tag with John Caldwell on the first lap of the 20-minute sprint race, got pushed into a spin, couldn't get the car restarted. I just wonder if he's done a little bit of damage to the internals that he couldn't rectify with the spares available to him. That is the very distinctive metallic blue livery of Rod Goodman as the field wind their way through Fania. And once again, and that is a problem there for Mark Hignett, who's waving his rivals past him. So Mark Hignett in the 64 car, possibly hitting trouble on the formation lap, because he has waved people through and has dropped to the tail of the train. So that is a pity for him. As I was going to say, once more, the pace car driver is certainly giving the field the opportunity to fully savour the Ardennes scenery, and starts to form them up really quite early as they come out of Stavelot for the run to Blanchimont side by side, getting ready for the rolling start. That has Mark Hignett just accelerated through to the tail of the train. Well, there he is. hard to say at the sort of speed they're going whether or not he's picked up an issue or not, or if he just didn't really fancy being part of the mid-pack melee heading towards La Source for the first time, which is totally understandable. Wait for them to emerge from Blanchimont. Here they come now. And so Jim Booth will be driver who will guide the pace of the field once they emerge from the bus stop chicane, getting ready for the rolling start. We have seen broadly clean, but very close action into La Source for the first couple of starts of the weekend, and the field really being brought down in terms of pace. They're probably only doing about 60 or so kilometres per hour. Mark Hignett definitely not looking to form a place in the field. I wonder if he's going to peel into the pit lane as well. So the pace car now moves aside. We're about to go racing for the final time this weekend in the Radical Challenge Championship. 40 minutes ahead of us as we wait for the lights to change, which they do now. And away we go, long hold, and the field already preemptively bunching up as they sprint towards La Source for the first time. Everybody just trying to find a little bit of space for each other. Mark Crader and Jason Rishover in the thick of the actions. They have been for much of the weekend, but they're all safely through and then plunging down towards Eau Rouge for the first time. Dominic Jackson under immediate pressure from Marcello Maratiotto. Then it's Steve Burgess in third. Looks like it's Jason Rishover in fourth. Jerome de Sadler pushed back to fifth as a result as they climb out of Radion. Also Brian Caldwell having made a good start. Jeremy Ferguson, the Masters class car, will take the advantage of the Kemmel Straight to pick his way past as many of the SR3s as he can. As Steve Burgess got a problem. He's to the inside of the road on the way into Les Combes. Passed by Brian Caldwell. Oh, more problems. Jason Rishover rotates in the middle of Les Combes. Somehow they all missed him. And Rishover recovered rapidly. Found a gear, got back up to speed. He's lost out as well to John McLeod. May lose out too to Christian Jeffrey. So they plunge downhill through the Bruxelles hairpin. McLeod runs a little bit wide. That reopens the door to Rishover, who just elbows McLeod onto the AstroTurf. McLeod repays the favour to Christian Jeffrey. So at the front of the field, Dominic Jackson leads the way. And he is trying to break away from Marcello Maratiotto, Jerome de Sadler and the rest of them. It's Christian Jeffrey living precariously through Pouot. One or two of the others as well, running very, very wide into the left-hander. They've all, though, gathered it up. Nobody, well, Rod Goodman heading to the asphalt runoff area, but otherwise all trouble-free. Jerome de Sadler already applying the pressure to Marcello Maratiotto as Jim Booth out front in the Masters class. And it's Jackson from Maratiotto to Sadler. Brian Caldwell well up in effectively fourth. Steve Burgess in fifth. And then in sixth, not unsurprisingly, it's Tom Gladys, one of the pro drivers in the team race. And Gladys trying to reel him in as Crader and Rishover about to be overhauled by Jeremy Ferguson, looking to scythe his way through the pack. He's already passed Jason Rishover, and Mark Crader doesn't look to stand in Ferguson's way. It's effectively Jeremy Ferguson's racing Jim Booth. He doesn't want to get mixed up or indeed unduly delay the SR3s as he carves through them. So the race lead, Dominic Jackson trying to stretch away from Maratiotto and de Sadler. As behind, side by side, Rishover and McLeod. That's very tight into La Source. Do they give each other racing room? Around goes Rishover again. His second spin of the race. At least he keeps it in gear, rejoins, but to the loss of more ground. So the front of the field plunge through Eau Rouge, climb out over Radion. Good news is that Mark Hignett has emerged from the pit lane. So whatever the issue was, it was easily rectifiable. Martin Verity, however, not taking to the start. So Dominic Jackson down the Kemmel Straight. Maratiotto trying to keep him honest with Jerome de Sadler just behind. Then a little bit of a gap back to Jeremy Ferguson, who picks his way past Brian Caldwell. Caldwell busy defending from Steve Burgess. It's the battle for second place in the Challenge Championship. Turns through the Bruxelles hairpin. Marcello Maracciotto getting quicker and quicker as the weekend has gone by. Steve Burgess looking in a little bit of a hurry now, if he can, to pick his way past Brian Caldwell. Burgess just running a little bit out over the AstroTurf en route to Pouhon. No harm done, though. Fully focused on the job ahead again, just using a little bit more road than Brian Caldwell on the way through Pouhon, hoping to carry enough speed out to slingshot him on the way towards Fagnes. But there you get the indication of just how late these cars can brake. The aerodynamic grip and the downforce slowing them almost on a dime, and therefore no way through for Steve Burgess just at the moment. Accelerating out Stavelot then for the second time. Here's Jim Booth, then Dominic Jackson. Can Jackson make it a clean sweep for the weekend? The success second suggests that is going to be a challenge. Oh, the problem there for John Caldwell. And has he got that fired up? Well, it's moving, as in the car's got is in motion, not that it's emotional, although it probably is for John, as he looks to get a little bit of a push. Jerome de Sailor also looking to give a little bit of a push to Marcello Maracciotto. And then where did John Caldwell go off? My money is on Les Combes. We will find out. Oh, here's another look at it. It was a tag actually into Fagnes with Spencer Bourne. Bourne just tipping Caldwell into a spin. And if he can't recover, I rather suspect that may result in a safety car venturing out, and as yet Caldwell yet to come through the second sector. So the fight for second and third in the Challenge Championship might be joined by the fight for fourth and fifth before too long, because Brian Caldwell and Steve Burgess looking to haul in Marcello Maracciotto and Jerome de Sailor. And de Sailor has been very quick all weekend. He's struggled a little bit in terms of overtaking, but this is a golden opportunity for de Sailor to maybe make a move on Maracciotto. As they wind down through the Bruxelles hairpin. No word yet as to whether or not we've still got yellow flags over at Fagnes. What we can confirm, though, is that John Caldwell hasn't completed the second sector on his second lap of the race. That's also a pity for us, just in terms of seeing what Stuart Mosley could have done. Oh, and a problem there for Brian Caldwell, who runs out wide through Pouhon. He's going to lose at least one place, possibly two, because he rejoins just behind Tom Gladys. And that pressure paying off eventually for Steve Burgess. No yellow flags, though, through Fagnes. Now Burgess is released to try and chase down the Maracciotto and de Sailor battle. We are still in the relatively early stages of the race, as Jerome de Sailor again right in the toe behind Marcello Maracciotto. Is he feeling close enough to make a move as they come out of Blanchimont towards the chicane? That's where certainly there is an opportunity. And de Sailor, is he going to burst out of the bubble? At the moment, he stays behind Maracciotto. Maracciotto preemptively covers the inside line. De Sailor to the outside and out, breaks Maracciotto. Oh, but he can't slow the car down in time. Jerome de Sailor recovers, does the gentlemanly thing. But as he's slow out of the chicane, does that leave him into the clutches of Steve Burgess? Well, it certainly means he's pretty much equidistant now between Maracciotto and Burgess. So the Belgian Swiss driver, not you can fully understand why he went for the move, but as Maracciotto was braking and de Sailor was continuing at a clip, you always wondered whether or not it might result in a bit of a moment. So Jim Booth being caught here by Jeremy Ferguson. This is at the front of the Masters class, with then Dominic Jackson third on the road, but he leads the Challenge Championship element of the race. And Jeremy Ferguson reeling in Jim Booth at a rate of 1.6 seconds per lap. He's 4.8 seconds back from Booth at the moment. Just picks up the throttle down through the Bruxelles hairpin. giving the curbs a reasonably wide berth at the moment, unless he really needs to attack them. Then here is Dominic Jackson. Now, Jackson's advantage over Marcello Maracchiotto is out to 4 or so seconds. I have to say that it's going to be quite enough for Dominic Jackson as the pit cycle works itself through, because Dominic Jackson has got additional 20 success seconds in the pits. Jerome de Seidler's got 15 success seconds, Steve Burgess has got 5, and Marcello Maracchiotto has got none. And so for Marcello Maracchiotto, that potentially plays into his hands. Jerome de Seidler needs to really stay within 5 seconds of Dominic Jackson to be within a shout of claiming victory. Already at 1/4 race distance, the pit window will be open before too long, and what they have to do, they drive past the pit lane open board before the pit window is before they can pit in, so that the pit stop's happening sort of just beyond the halfway point of the race, really. So therefore the gaps that can be gained in this part of the race are absolutely crucial. Mr. Seidler back with Maracchiotto, and Marcello Maracchiotto just taking the correct racing line. He's going to make Jerome de Seidler do the hard work here. In the background, Steve Burgess and Tom Gladys trying to close up onto the tail of this battle. And also Brian Caldwell recovering from his moment earlier on. Next in the queue, it's Mark Crader. He's at second clear of Christian Jeffrey. Then John McLeod, Jason Rishova and Elliot Goodman. We have, in terms of casualties in this race, it's really only John Caldwell who we've totally lost. As here is a challenge for the lead of the Masters class. Jeremy Ferguson looking to the inside of Jim Booth. The American, though, able to retain the lead of the race. What about the battles further back for the Radical Challenge Championship? Second place this fight is, and it is now 6.6 seconds back from Dominic Jackson. So as Maracchiotto slightly delays de Seidler and Burgess, this begins to play into Jackson's hands, because once the pit stops has played through, if gaps stay broadly speaking as they are now, Maracchiotto would emerge in the lead from Burgess, and then it's game on between Dominic Jackson and Jerome de Seidler, as Jeremy Ferguson squirming under braking into Fania. But Jim Booth, we have seen time and time again, a very good driver driving a wide car and really using his brain, and will be absolutely focusing on the corner exit speed now. Come out of the Cours Paul Frere through Stavelot, because he knows if he gets a good run out towards Blanchimont, there's not an awful lot that Jeremy Ferguson can do about it. So the engines cut their way through the forest. High-speed run on towards Blanchimont. Here they come, bursting into view, and Ferguson looking to the inside of Booth. I think he might be close enough to make the challenge to the inside. Takes the lead in the Masters class as they turn into the bus stop chicane. And that was a well-executed manoeuvre from Ferguson. He is now going to try and clear off into the distance. Dominic Jackson's advantage over Marcello Maracchiotto, meanwhile, going out all the while. It's now 7.9 seconds. So Jackson an increasingly commanding lead in the Radical Challenge Championship. 2 victories to his credit already this weekend. Steve Burgess racking up the points all the while, but what was a fairly healthy points advantage coming into the weekend will have been whittled away a little bit. Mark Hignett about to be put another lap down, as here is the battle then, and there's been a change. Jerome de Seidler has been passed by Steve Burgess, and de Seidler now under a little bit of threat as well from Tom Gladys as they climb out of Radillon. Didn't quite see what happened there. As Burgess, though, it's not done and dusted just yet. De Seidler may fancy a chance of coming back at him, and just shows himself in Burgess's mirrors, looks to draw alongside on the brakes. Burgess moves across, turns into Les Combes a little bit earlier than he normally would. Gathers it up on the exit, nothing doing for de Seidler as a result. De Seidler then just slightly wayward into the right-hander, and that's the opportunity as they run down to Bruxelles, is it? For Tom Gladys. Again, de Seidler gathers it up, hugs the apex, not surprisingly, pretty tightly as they head through Bruxelles. And then the three left-handers on towards Pouin they go. And immediately Burgess through the technical section, closing up to Marcello Maritiotto. Full commitment as they turn downhill through Pouin. These five cars, was five cars running together. Brian Caldwell for the second time in the race, just missing the turn-in point and taking evasive action through the asphalt runoff. And that's really why those asphalt runoff areas are there, because in years gone by, that moment for Brian Caldwell would have been rewarded at the very best with a fairly hefty damage bill. As now Burgess is all over the tail of Maritiotto. Let's see if Steve is prepared to be a little bit more aggressive than Jerome de Seidler was in trying to force his way past Marcello Maritiotto. These two drivers, both stalwart competitors in various radical championships over the years. They know these cars inside out. So they probably know each other's driving characteristics inside out as well. As Burgess tries to show himself in the mirrors to Maritiotto, forcing Maritiotto to make the mistake as they arrive into chicane. Nothing doing. Maritiotto turns in a little bit late as Steve Burgess picks up a warning flag for track limit infringements. And they've just got to be careful with that, not to fall foul of the Judge Dredd style instant justice that can be dispensed from race control. It's downhill. Oh, and that's the opportunity here for Steve Burgess. He's roaring alongside Maritiotto. This for second. There almost contact. There was contact as they headed down the start and finish stretch. It opens the door to Jerome de Seidler. Now is somebody trailing a little bit of smoke as de Seidler goes past Burgess on the way through Eau Rouge. And there is definitely somebody who's got some bodywork rubbing. And I fear it's Steve Burgess after that tag with Maritiotto. It's not much smoke as Burgess loses out to Tom Gladys. Jerome de Seidler still lining himself up for the move of Maritiotto, and he's going to go through finally now into Les Combes. Runs a little bit wide, runs a little bit wider on the exit, keeps it gathered up just about. Tom Gladys all the while watching, waiting for the opportunity, which almost presents itself on the way into Bruxelles. Instead, he forces Maritiotto to commit to a very tight inside line. Maritiotto able to slow the car sufficiently and then kick into the first of the left-handers, running downhill towards Pouin. Here's another look at it, and yeah, fairly definitely, and quite a big bump between the pair of them, Maritiotto and Steve Burgess. And given that that is a very, very fast part of the circuit, it's the smoke actually from Maritiotto. His rear bodywork is just grinding against his rear right wheel, and it may have caused a puncture because Maritiotto kicks a little bit sideways. Well, I really hope he's not knocked something that contains some oil loose that's spraying onto his rear tyre, because if so, this is one of the last circuits where you want to be having some high-speed break of traction. So Maritiotto continues on his way. At the moment, other than that moment into the core Paul Frere, doesn't seem to have been adversely affected as Tom Gladys looking to the outside of Maritiotto. All the while, of course, Jerome de Seidler able to break clear. They Constantine are up under braking once more. Brian Caldwell also part of this group. And across the line, Jerome de Seidler is immediately 2.1 seconds rather up the road ahead of Marcello Maritiotto in second place, but some 12.6 seconds back from Dominic Jackson. So Jackson, with this fight going on behind him, may yet overcome all those success seconds in the pits, which would really be quite something. Down towards Eau Rouge, out of Radiant. The pit lane is now open, so they have to go past the pit lane open board before they can make that change. And Marcello Maritiotto channeling the ghost of Jarno Trulli to great effect this afternoon, moving across and just shading out Tom Gladys. And whatever damage was done through Mariciotto's car, he's able to drive around it to very good effect. As Burgess now looking to try and make the move on Gladys, and Burgess got the inside line on the way into the Bruxelles hairpin. There wasn't an awful lot that Tom Gladys could do about that. He knew that he conceded the track position to Steve Burgess, and immediately Brian Caldwell sniffing, and then in the background, Christian Jeffrey, having overcome those problems from the sprint race earlier, has now latched himself onto the tail of this train for third place. So Jeffrey having a very impressive performance as well, having leapt his way up through the field. So it's Dominic Jackson who still leads, Jerome de Sadler second. We're focused on the fight for third. In the Masters class, Jeremy Ferguson 4.2 seconds clear of Jim Booth. Steve Burgess has a little bit of a moment, and we have got a 5-second penalty to car 31. That is Rod Goodman for track limits. And Goodman some way down, but it was more that Steve Burgess is exploring every available opportunity, using every inch of the road, if not a little bit more on occasion. And again, he's desperately close to Mariciotto as they head towards Blanchimont. Looks to the outside, finds a little bit of traction. Is he going to be near enough to challenge Mariciotto as they head towards the chicane? Mariciotto is going to try and cover the inside line. It forces Burgess to look to the outside. Burgess draws alongside and almost contact again with Mariciotto. But Marcello Mariciotto defends absolutely exquisitely. And it means now that Burgess is under threat from Tom Gladys as Christian Jeffrey finds his way past Brian Caldwell. Really, really entertaining race, this one, as Marcello Mariciotto proving that a Radical SR3, when you want it to be, is exactly the width of the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. We're already over half race distance. Steve Burgess just about fending off Tom Gladys. Out of the crest of Radion on towards Les Combes. There is Jerome de Sadler. Now 3.7 seconds up from the scrap. 13 seconds back, though, from Dominic Jackson. So Dominic Jackson, by the time that he has been through the pits, you never know, he may emerge in the lead. Meanwhile, in has come Alex Mortimer. So Mortimer in the developmental car for next year will pause and wait for his pit stop time to peel down. Rod Goodman and Peter Brooks also serving their pit stops. So just a quick check of the tyre pressures as immediately Burgess has latched himself back on to the tail of Marcello Mariciotto. Tom Gladys, Christian Jeffrey in close company as well. Imagine that a good number of them might bolt into the pits on this occasion, try and leap Marcello Mariciotto through the pit stops, if nothing else. This is going to be set up very, very nicely for the second half of the race, because by my admittedly not brilliant maths, Marcello Mariciotto's got a very good chance of emerging from the mid-race pit cycle in the lead of the race. It will then be a question about whether or not he can fend off Dominic Jackson with quite the aplomb that he's held off the rest of this terrain for the race thus far. Meanwhile, Steve Burgess really does need to be careful. He's already had a warning for track limits. And coming out of Fania there was certainly a suggestion that was four wheels over the white line again. So Jeremy Ferguson continuing to press on at the front of the field. His Masters class rival, Jim Booth, is in the pits, as is Dominic Jackson, the race leader. So Dominic Jackson has headed into the pit lane. Jerome de Sadler, Marcello Mariciotto haven't. Steve Burgess does leap in, as does Tom Gladys. Christian Jeffrey and Brian Caldwell continuing on their way. So this is the point of the race where everything gets into flux a little bit, as Burgess settled in the cockpit. Oh, and a problem there for Adrian Watt. And is that on the way into the pit entry for Adrian Watt? Hard to see from that angle. We'll wait to see notification of which turn the yellow flag is at. But if Adrian Watt's facing the wrong direction all the way into the pit entry and he's lost the engine of that car, then that presents all manner of issues. Mark Crader, meanwhile, is just having a check on his car. The same for Jason Rishover. Spencer Bourne continues. He is yet to pit in, nor is Elliot Goodman, the man immediately behind him. So the pit stop's in full swing, and those that haven't pitted yet will potentially be heading towards the pits at the end of this lap. Adrian Watt, meanwhile, I'm pleased to report, has got up and running and is in the pit lane okay. As Dominic Jackson and Steve Burgess have emerged from the pits, unclear in which order. There is Adrian Watt. So wait to see as Jeremy Ferguson peels down the pit lane now. Who crosses the first sector first? It is Dominic Jackson, who is 0.3 of a second up on Steve Burgess. So Dominic Jackson, so at least one of his rivals that he's been able to see off. Here is Peter Brooks, and Peter has already had his pit stop. Running down the hill towards Eau Rouge, currently in 17th position. Waiting to see whether or not Jerome de Sadler, Marcello Maracchiotto and the gang all choose this point to make their pit stops as well. Yep, de Sadler is in. Maracchiotto is not in, so Marcello Maracchiotto is going to continue for another lap. Christian Jeffrey also into the pit lane, as is Brian Caldwell. But those that have pitted, it is Dominic Jackson, who is to the fore, fractionally clear of Steve Burgess. That's just running out a little bit wide there is Peter Brooks through the Brookesdale hairpin. Dominic Jackson, 1.1 seconds now up on Steve Burgess as they came through the second section. Those that pitted in third place, it's Mark Crader. The longer pit stop for the Masters class cars means that Jim Booth is fourth on the road. The pit lane is now closed, but Maracchiotto, because he's not gone past the pit lane closed board, can pit next time around. More works ongoing in the pit lane. Couldn't quite pick the number out on that car. Possibly Elliot Goodman. So we're continuing to stay with Peter Brooks as Christian Jeffrey re-emerges into the race. Maracchiotto will need to pit in fairly shortly. So here is the battle between Dominic Jackson and Steve Burgess. And it would appear that they have, well, there is Andrew Ferguson. It would appear that they've got a fairly good leap over Christian Jeffrey and Jerome de Sadler through the pit stop. So Dominic Jackson, will he be able to make it a clean sweep? It all really depends on what Marcello Maracchiotto is able to do. And Maracchiotto should, it's quite an operative, should be peeling into the pit lane momentarily. But given the track position of Dominic Jackson, kind of wonder whether or not Maracchiotto's advantage is going to be sufficient. And that is a problem, unfortunately, for Jeremy Ferguson. It looks like going really quite slowly down out of the Brookesdale hairpin. Almost looks as if he restarted the car, which briefly, and he's doing it again, trying to kick it into life, as now into the pit lane comes Marcello Maracchiotto. So Maracchiotto in from the lead of the race. Now this, an important pit stop. The team just checking the rear of the car for any damage. Kind of get the feeling though, with the red mist down, even if there was any, it wouldn't mean an awful lot. So there's Jerome de Sadler. He's ahead of Christian Jeffrey, as Jeremy Ferguson, unfortunately, in a manner of bother once more. So that is going to promote Jim Booth to the lead of the Masters class. Now, where will Maracchiotto emerge from the pits relative to Dominic Jackson and Steve Burgess? It's going to be a very, very finely run thing as to whether or not Maracchiotto comes out in the lead or not. as Mark Schrader looking to apply a little bit of pressure to Christian Jeffrey. And Jeffrey, for the moment, able to withstand it. So cross line now have come Jackson and Burgess, 0.8 of a second between the pair of them. So we follow this fight. Maritiotto emerging from the pit lane now. So where will Maritiotto feed into the traffic? John McLeod closes up onto the tail of Mark Schrader. Just over 10 minutes to go. And McLeod looking to the inside of Schrader into Lassour's hairpin. Oh, has he outbraked himself? No, he hasn't, but Schrader able to slip back past on the exit. So, as we were. Now, watching the timing screen, here is Jim Booth. He's behind Jerome de Sadler. Now, here are Jackson and Burgess. Where is Marcello Maritiotto? And Maritiotto has gone through 3.5 seconds ahead of this group. So now the chase is well and truly on. So Marcello Maritiotto post pit stops our leader. There he is. Second place is Jackson, who we follow. In third place, it's Steve Burgess. Now, in terms of best lap times, Dominic Jackson is 1.6 seconds a lap quicker than Marcello Maritiotto. But this could be really insane, given how wide Maritiotto was in the first half of the race. Not unfairly wide at all. But Jackson and Burgess may have a job to get past him, and they're not going to have all that many laps to play with, because by the time that they have wound themselves back round to the start and finish straight, there's going to be probably just shy of 9 minutes left on the clock. A little bit of a moment there for Steve Burgess on the way into Fania, running out a little bit wide. Nothing I think that's going to have hurt him too badly. As now Maritiotto accelerates out of Stavelot. Dominic Jackson, he can see his quarry. This is for Dominic Jackson between him and the clean sweep in the Radical Challenge Championship this weekend in Spa. So Maritiotto leads, Jackson second, Burgess is third, Jerome Sadler fourth in the points, Christian Jeffrey fifth from Mark Schrader, John McLeod, Brian Caldwell, Elliot Goodman and Jason Rishove currently completing the top 10. Slipping and sliding their way through the final chicane. And Maritiotto has been reeled in by the best part of half a second just through the final sector on this lap. And so the pace at which Dominic Jackson is going, one would suggest that it is going to be a bit of an ask here for Maritiotto to keep Jackson behind him, but we shall see. All the while, the race clock ticks downward as Jackson propels himself out of Radion. In pursuit is Steve Burgess. The heat haze shimmering along the Kemmel Straight on towards Les Combes. Into the braking zone, Jackson works the wheel, plants the right foot, continues to pursue Marcello Maritiotto. Steve Burgess now a little bit distant. That last lap for Burgess wasn't his greatest. This lap the same. I just wonder if he's nursing a bit of a problem. Maybe he's really got through the best of the tyres, because it would appear as if he's just struggling to get the car to turn as he'd like it to. That said, this fight is 10 seconds more, almost 14 seconds up the road from Jerome de Sadler. So it's between these three drivers to sort out the podium between themselves. For Steve Burgess, you'd suggest his best chance of victory is if Maritiotto can keep Jackson behind him and they slow themselves both down sufficiently to bring that blue car back into the fight. For Dominic Jackson, it might just be a case of trying to catch Marcello Maritiotto by surprise. So out of Stavelot they go. The blast to Blanchimont, 7 minutes left in the race. Lapping in the time of 2.5 minutes per lap. They're only going to have time for 3 more laps or so at the end of this one. So this the 13th lap of the race. As Maritiotto gets on the brakes for the bus stop chicane. He's not really put a wheel wrong all race, has he? And that is the case once more as he accelerates out of the chicane. But now he's got Dominic Jackson right up behind him. Across the line they come. 6 minutes and 20 seconds left on the clock. Into the antepenultimate lap then, and Jackson looks to the inside, and Maracciotto shuts the door on Dominic Jackson, and Jackson now looks to fight back as they come down the hill towards Eau Rouge. Marcello Maracciotto asserting his right to the racing line and forcing Dominic Jackson just to back out of the manoeuvre, but Jackson should carry enough speed out of Radion now to be able to overhaul Maracciotto along the Kemmel Straight. At least that's what he will be hoping. Now, where does Maracciotto position the car? That will tell us just how near or otherwise Jackson is. Jackson, he's closing all the while, but he's not near enough to challenge on the brakes into Les Combes. So the pair of them head through in tandem. However, the bad news I have to report is that both Marcello Maracciotto and Steve Burgess have been given a stop-and-go penalty for results of infringements through the mid-race pit stops, and so the cars currently first and third on the road are going to have to peel in for stop-and-go penalties, which is going to give the victory to Dominic Jackson. It's going to promote Jerome de Seidler almost certainly to second place, Christian Jeffrey to third. So that good news is going to be communicated to Marcello Maracciotto at the end of this lap. Now, what he and Burgess may elect to do is have the stop-and-go penalty on the final lap of the race, which is a little bit of the cheeky Schumacher move from the British Grand Prix, going back to the late 90s, but it is something that might be on the table. It's a pity for us, though, because it takes away what have been a very, very good on-track battle. And Dominic Jackson, right, the stop-and-go penalties, they're going to be applied after the race. So Dominic Jackson will see the communication which suggests that he doesn't need to overtake Maracciotto on the track when he comes back past his pit board on this occasion. And therefore, for Jackson, what he can really do is essentially just settle in for the ride behind Maracciotto, ensure that the green car doesn't get more than 3 seconds in front of him, which you'd have to say is unlikely as they head into their penultimate lap now. And this is where Jackson will look to close up on to the tail of Maracciotto, the pair of them into La Source again, and Jackson goes the move, and this time Maracciotto doesn't fight it on the way, he does on the exit, and Jackson in fact slowed himself enough that Burgess is sniffing. So exactly as we wondered may happen, as Jackson and Maracciotto have fought, it has brought Steve Burgess into this fight, and Burgess is right underneath the rear wing of Dominic Jackson as they come through Eau Rouge, really, really close between the pair of them. Out of Radion on to the Kemmel Straight. When they come through next time, it will be to start the final lap of the race, as there are just 3 minutes to go. Dominic Jackson, although barring disaster he's won this race, would like to win it on the track if he possibly can. So he continues to pursue Maracciotto. Again, commits into the Bruxelles hairpin, doesn't overcommit, so the door doesn't open to Steve Burgess. Down they come out of the Bruxelles section through Pouhon. Dominic Jackson continuing to inch ever closer and looking for the move into Fagner, and he's going to go for it, or is he? Because Maracciotto again shuts the door on Dominic Jackson, just determined to take the racing line. And the team on the pit wall for Dominic Jackson will probably be having kittens at this point, because they know that Jackson doesn't have to pass Maracciotto to win this race. But Jackson may not know that. Certainly the way he's going, it suggests that he's not aware of that fact. So around Blanchimont for the penultimate time, these three cars well clear of the rest of the field. And again, Jackson sizing up the move. into the chicane. He looks to the outside of Maracciotto. Maracciotto squeezes him out. Jackson tries to fight back, barges past Maracciotto, and Burgess takes advantage too as Jackson runs out very, very wide. And he's going to rejoin directly alongside Burgess. They almost barge into each other as they head towards La Source for the final time. Jackson's got the inside line. Burgess, if he can break late enough and cut it across, might just be able to get the leap on Jackson as they run down towards Eau Rouge. That camera angle suggests that they're running side by side. And now Jackson moves across, takes the lead of the race. But Burgess is still directly behind Dominic Jackson as they turn into Eau Rouge. He's not going for the move there, surely not. But he takes the different line in. All over the tail of Dominic Jackson as they clamber out of Radillon for the final time. And Maracciotto has got a good clip underneath him as well. So as they head down the Kemmel Straight, and Dominic Jackson under real pressure from Burgess and Maracciotto, bobbing and weaving every which way into the chicane. Maracciotto looks to challenge the outside of Steve Burgess. He goes for it, has a bit of a wobble mid-corner, but he's able to secure the pass on Steve Burgess. But Burgess, if he stays within 2 seconds of Maracciotto, will still get the place over Maracciotto when it's sorted out later. And Burgess goes the move into Bruxelles. Around he goes. Oh, no. Steve Burgess was determined to go for that manoeuvre. He rejoins. He's still third on the road. He's ahead of Jerome de Seidler. And Steve Burgess, he's been basically waiting the best part of 40 minutes to make that move. He went for it, and it didn't quite work out in his favour. So the clock has ticked to 0, half a lap to go for Dominic Jackson, who is set fair to make it a clean sweep this weekend in the Radical Challenge Championship here at Spa-Francorchamps. It has been a very, very impressive weekend's worth of driving from Dominic Jackson. I think he's really had to fight hard for this one. So Jackson accelerating out of Stavelot. Just a few corners to go, and into Blanchimont for Dominic Jackson. Rides the camber at Blanchimont and then on to the bus stop chicane. So Jackson, he just needs to make sure he doesn't push and attack the chicane any harder than he needs to, which he doesn't do. Accelerates out to the final turn. A checker flag goes out and Dominic Jackson claims victory and a clean sweep in the Radical Challenge Championship here in Spa-Francorchamps. Second place to Marcello Maracciotto. Jim Booth, third on the road, wins the Masters class, and Steve Burgess taking third place from Jerome de Seidler and Christian Jeffrey. Once the penalties have shuffled through a little bit, we shall see quite how that all looks, with then Mark Crader next along, having bettered John McLeod late in the race. And Brian Caldwell shouldn't be too far after them. Indeed he is, and he had Elliot Goodman pursuing him and Jason Rishover. Be a bit of a wait now for Peter Tyler, who's some 25 seconds back as the field all coming through. So really enjoyable battle there in the Radical Challenge Championship. The defensive abilities of Marcello Maracciotto serving to bunch the field up very, very nicely indeed, giving us plenty of entertainment. A couple of cars blasting through across the line. We've had a bit of a problem, I think, for Peter Tyler on this last lap, because he is shuffled down the order quite considerably. And here comes Peter Tyler now, so possibly a spin for Tyler. Yeah, very, very slow middle sector, losing about 12 seconds. Well, it's been a very, very enjoyable weekend of racing for the Radical Challenge Championship here in Spa-Francorchamps as the last two cars take the checkered flag. Dominic Jackson winning all three races, with then Maracciotto getting his second place from Steve Burgess, Jerome de Seidler, Christian Jeffrey, and the rest of them. So thank you very much for joining us in Spa this weekend for the Radical Challenge Championship. We will see you again soon. Until then, it's goodbye from Belgium. Pole position for the first race of the weekend for the championship leader, Brazil's Felipe Drugovich, who came into Spa hot on the heels of a double win in Paul Ricard. The Brazilian driver looking to add to his victory tally. He shared the front row of the grid with the American Cameron Dass, who looked very impressive during testing for the Carlin team, and carrying that pace into Saturday morning's qualifying session. Third on the grid for the Argentine Marcus Siebert, back at the front of the field after a difficult weekend in France. The Argentine, the only other driver to have won a race this year alongside Felipe Drugovich. Fourth on the grid for Janis Fitcher and the Drivex team, the German looking to score his first podium of the campaign.
Glad I had a shave this morning now.
Well, the racing at Spa always very exciting, and therefore lots of anticipation on the grid. When the lights went out, there was a jump start from Leonard Hogenboom, a stall for Callum Williams, but the rest of the field made the run towards La Source, with Williams struggling to get away. It was Drugovich who led through at the front of the field, everybody else staying out of trouble. Didn't stay that way for too long, as Cameron Dass leapt into the early advantage with Marcus Siebert, also able to get ahead of Felipe Drugovich. So Alex Karkozic took evasive action through Les Combes. Karkozic then running wide at Fania, and as he rejoined a little bit sideways, that was into the path of teammate Yves Baltas. Both of the Campos cars eliminated, as was Aldo Festante through the dust clouds. So disappointment for Campos, but they still had Marcus Siebert at the front of the field when the race got back underway after the intervention of the safety car. Once we did get underway, the racing was very, very close. Cameron Dass leading the way to La Source, but it was going to be the run to Les Combes that was going to decide events for the course of much of the afternoon. Three wide, and Felipe Drugovich looking to force the issue, but Marcus Siebert able to sive through in the lead. Cameron Dass fighting him all the way, with Drugovich slipping into the clutches of Matteo Siorio behind in the midfield. The fighting was equally frantic. Leonard Hogenboom and Janis Fitcher battling wheel to wheel, and this is a superb move from Hogenboom, forcing Fitcher to back out as they arrived into Eau Rouge. Siebert and Dass kept fighting for the win, but then disaster at Les Combes, contact between the pair of them, Dass into the tyre wall and Siebert into the pits with a broken nose cone. Drugovich and Matteo Siorio passing the ailing Argentine as he ran wide at Prouan. It was then the turn of Matteo Siorio to try and take the fight to Felipe Drugovich to see if he could overhaul Drugovich and halt the winning streak. Behind Lucas Dunner, Janis Fitcher and Michael Benyaya were busy fighting. Fitcher committing to a move at the chicane. Benyaya shut the door with the somewhat inevitable consequence. But as the race unfolded, Felipe Drugovich was able to build a decisive advantage over Matteo Siorio to make it 3 wins in a row for the Brazilian and the RP Motorsport team, further extending his lead at the top of the championship. It was a thoroughly, thoroughly entertaining race. So Drugovich winning it from Matteo Siorio in second place, completing the podium, Guilherme Samaya, and that was his first Euroformula Open career podium, with Lucas Dunner the top rookie. It's Felipe Drugovich who was on pole position once more for Sunday's race, and as we found out later on, setting the time in qualifying on old tyres once more, confirming his ability at the front of the field. This time round he shared the front row of the grid with Ben Fiscal for the Teo Martin Motorsport team. Dutchman getting better and better as the weekend unfolded, still in pursuit though of his first outright race victory. Third on the grid to Alex Karkozic, qualified second, but the grid penalty putting him a little bit lower down the order. And then Guilherme Samaya also qualifying strongly, the wheel of the RP Motorsport car. Again, strength and depth through the field, and another entertaining race in prospect. Pre-race smiles and conversations in the pit lane. As the lights went out, Viscal looking to take the fight to Drugovic as they accelerated towards La Source for the first time. As Lucas Dunham bogging down a little bit in the Drivex car from fourth on the grid. Marcus Siebert tipping through in third place. The opening exchange is always the best opportunities to gain ground, and therefore Viscal looking to try and home in on Felipe Drugovic down the Kemmel straight for the first time. That's exactly what Viscal was able to do, taking the lead away from the Brazilian. Marcus Siebert, though, unable to follow through, demote Drugovic into third place. It's behind Callum Williams going side by side. Drugovic, however, didn't need to wait long before reclaiming the advantage, carving past Ben Viscal on the way into the bus stop chicane at the end of the first lap of the race. And thereafter, try as the others might, they couldn't get anywhere near the Brazilian. Behind there was some great scrapping as Cameron Das and Matteo Siorio looked to make up ground after a disappointing qualifying session for the Carlin drivers. Wheel to wheel between Das and Leonard Hogenboom. Meanwhile, Marcus Siebert, Ben Viscal and Alex Karkozik were busy doing battle for second place. This the decisive move, with Karkozik slingshotting both his teammate and Viscal to take second position, but then Viscal and the Teo Marti Motorsport car able to fend off Siebert. That said, the Argentine did get through briefly later on, but before too long, Viscal was back in front. Meanwhile, Yves Baltas and Callum Williams having a good scrap a little bit lower down the order, enjoying the slipstreaming properties of the Kemmel straight. That error from Marcus Siebert trying to force the issue with Ben Viscal into Les Combes forced the Argentine to back out as they came towards the Bruxelles hairpin, elevating Viscal up to third position, which was a place that he would never relinquish. Meanwhile, there was a great battle between the Carlin pair of Cameron Das and Matteo Siorio as they tried to latch themselves into the podium battle. But for Felipe Drugovic, it was one of those weekends. Perfect day at Spa. Pole position, fastest lap, and race victory. So 4 on the bounce for Drugovic. Second place to Alex Karkozik. Very strong performance for the Campos driver, with Ben Viscal finishing in third and the top rookie. So as we head towards the Hungaroring in July, it really is over to the rest of the field to take the challenge to the Brazilian Felipe Drugovic, who has not been beaten in the championship since April. So a perfect weekend in the Ardennes for Felipe Drugovic. 2 victories in the Euroformula Open.
Et Jean Dubois remet également le trophée au RP Motorsport de Carlo Tarantino.
The sun shone for the first of the GT Open races of the weekend, with David Perel in pole position in the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari. South African in flying form during qualifying. Michael Mack then second on the grid in the Luzit Racing Ferrari. Mack, the championship leader, hoping to add to his points tally, reunited once more with Sandro Pierguidi. Richard Gonda in the Senkyu Motorsport BMW, lining up in third place on the car's debut in the championship. And then Riccardo Agostini leading the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini charge after a very impressive performance in qualifying. So the massed ranks of the crowd ready for the rolling start. When we did get going, it was a cavalry charge down towards La Source, with Perel going side by side with Michael Mack, looking to fight for the lead. Behind, it all got a little bit too congested, with an entanglement between Andrea Montermini and Fernando Reis. Montermini turned around, but fortunately both he and Rees were able to continue. More drama at the end of the first lap. Bradley Ellis tipped into a spin by Rinat Salakov, but the big victim was Lorenzo Berau de Viega, sustaining damage